So figuring out then how to be humble and still put out into the world the work that only you can put out into the world is a tricky balance. It's a tricky tight wire. And I do think some of the teaching that you have been able to share has been the mindset shift that I needed in order to say, the program gave me the courage to say, no, this is going to be the next way forward. And I can't see the end goal yet, but I knew that this was an interim step that would help me move forward toward my goals. It is an incredibly valuable program. The support that I've gotten in the program has been really remarkable. Ulrike is building a community of circus artists who cheer each other on, pay attention to each other's work. And you can't just sign up for the program and pay the money and do nothing, right? You have to put in the work.
Elizabeth Wohl, or as you might can say, Elizabeth Wohl. Elizabeth is such an important member of our wider NECA community. She is a supporter of NECA and also a board member. She is an amazing performer and singer who tonight is presenting an aria from Romeo and Juliet, the opera.
So I am an American opera singer and circus artist. I live in New England, and I combine aerial silks and aerial rope with operatic arias. So I started performing when I was 7, dance and singing. And I started performing professionally in musical theater when I was 15, and then went to college sort of thinking that was going to be where I ended up. And I figured out pretty quickly that when I was in college, nobody had a clear sense of how to make a business in the arts, how to actually support themselves. So that made me a little scared and nervous. Although I loved performing, I wasn't sure that I knew how to turn it into a business. Also in college, I discovered opera. I had a wonderful, wonderful voice teacher who introduced me to many, many different roles, many different stories. And what I really fell in love with is the depth of character development that is available because there is a whole orchestra telling the story underneath the singer. So the challenge that I was facing in my career when I found you, Ulrike, is that I knew I wanted to perform more. I knew I had something that almost nobody else in the world was doing. And I felt like it deserved to get out into the world. But I didn't really have any sense of how to take the first steps to describe what I did, to find the people who would be interested in it. And I lacked the confidence in myself as a performer. I'll say because I had spent a lot of years just performing sort of at a more amateur level and practicing at my day job, and because I live in a town where there are many, many circus artists, it was very easy for me to compare myself to other people and think, well, I'm not as flexible as that person, or I'm not as young as that person, or I have a family that I have to take care of and they don't. And so I had all these barriers that I had put in my own way, sort of all these roadblocks, and I didn't know how to get through them, but I knew I wanted to get through them. I went back and looked at my notes, and you're like, here are the challenges that circus artists face. They're comparing themselves to each other's. They're envious of other people's careers. Yeah, and it's scary, right? And the other thing that I have been thinking about this morning is just how much in the circles that I grew up in, and I don't know how common this is in other places, but I got a lot of messages about not showing off and being humble and not getting too big for my britches, is how we would say it. And that means, so figuring out then how to be humble and still put out into the world the work that only you can put out into the world is a tricky balance. It's a tricky tight wire. And I do think some of the teaching that you have been able to share has been the mindset shift that I needed in order to say, listen, I'm not the best at anything. I just happen to do this one thing, and it's worth sharing. The world deserves to have it. And that feels really audacious to say. It's made such a huge difference. So the Selling Circus program really enabled me, first of all, to embrace this rare, sometimes I call it bizarre or kooky combination of skills it allowed me to really own that combination rather than trying to fill in the sort of standard aerialist niche or try to focus on just straight opera. It allowed me to say, no, this combination is my sweet spot. And then once I could focus in on that sweet spot, I started looking at where are the venues or festivals, what is the right place to sell this? And in the first year, because now it's been a little more than a year, in the first year, I was able to find a fringe festival where I put together this combination and performed for 3 nights in a row. I just got wonderful feedback. What it also taught me was that I had a lot of work to do, sort of homework to do in developing marketing materials. And so I'm looking right now because I want to just pull up the metrics because I know I sent you metrics. Before I started selling Circus, I would say I had performed 3 times in that year and I got paid for none of them. In 2023, my first year of selling Circus, I gave 13 performances and I got paid for 8 of them. And I started an LLC, which is important in the United States because it is a business corporation that sort of gives you a little more legal protection, but also enabled me to pay the accompanists that I was working with. And that feels really valuable and important. So far in 2024, I created this brand new show, which I'm happy to tell you more about, and booked it into the first theater where we did 2 shows. And now we're looking to sell that show to other places. And I also am already booked for a festival in August where we're actually going to perform a condensed version of the Magic Flute with a 10-piece instrumental ensemble and somewhere between 2 and 4 singers. So I'm still working on that piece. Those are some of the hard metrics around the Selling Circus program. And again, there's a clear process, right? When I feel stuck now, I know I just go back to the program and say, why am I stuck? Oh, I'm stuck because I'm here. I have this work to do. And then when I get that work done, I know that I'll be able to push forward in new ways. One of the pieces of the Selling Circus program is this real sense of taking a creative approach. So if you're stuck, looking at why might you be stuck? What is the problem? And I think the one challenge that I ran into sort of in the tail end of 2023 was a real sense that I knew I had a thing to sell and I could not for the life of me find the places that wanted to buy this thing. And that's partly because I live in a rural part of the United States. I have 2 kids, so I can't travel a lot. And getting into big city markets or cabarets or variety shows just was not working for me. And so I decided to make my own show. And I found a venue that was willing to collaborate with me. And I remember sitting down with the director of the theater, and he was like, well, you've got 30 minutes of material. That's not enough for an evening. And I was like, oh, I can give you a whole evening, right? I don't want to combine my work with somebody else just to fill up an evening. Like, I'll make a whole show. And so even though it felt a little, maybe a sidetrack from the program of like just marketing one act, like the program gave me the courage to say, no, this is going to be the next way forward. And I can't see the end goal yet, but I knew that this was an interim step that would help me move forward toward my goals. And in the process, I created accidentally a 90-minute show with 2 other singers and an accompanist who I got to pay. We found a grant to support the work, and I got to spend 3 days in the theater. The first 2 days were just me and my rig workshopping. And then we had a day of rehearsal, and then we did 2 shows on the 3rd day. So what I would tell somebody who is considering the Selling Circus program and on the fence about it is that if they are serious about building a career, and if they will want to put in the work and be in it for the long haul, then they should absolutely do it. It is an incredibly valuable program. The support that I've gotten in the program has been really remarkable. Ulrike is building a community of circus artists who cheer each other on, pay attention to each other's work. And you can't just sign up for the program and pay the money and do nothing, right? You have to put in the work. So if you're not willing to put in the work, then don't do it. If you're ready to be serious about your career, then this is the place to be.